Sadam, yogis, yoginis, hello, welcome. Sadam, Sohail, good to see you here. It's good to have you on time to today's stream. Every day I have to choose a topic for the stream. I'm not sure what topic is going to be. This last Tuesday, I did a special video on death. And I thought that it would be nice today. Thursdays are more relaxed generally. So to explore that beautiful poem that is very, very famous, Invictus. And I think it's very much connected to death. It's really expresses a lot of the, how can I say it? The circumstances that are around a person who is gonna go into the beyond. So I think it's a beautiful thing to reflect upon. And next week, we're going to start with different videos. Next week, we're going to start with number 5 from numerology. So we are back to regular schedule with the numbers course. But yeah, today I wanted to complement the video from Tuesday. But, feel free to talk about anything you want. If you have some ideas of something you would like to discuss. I don't know if you could watch did you watch the video on the death? I don't know if you were, I don't remember if you were present. So, the Invictus poem, I don't know. I wish I was more of a poet, maybe. I'm not a poet. I don't know how to write poetry. And I only appreciate it in my very naive way. I wish I knew more poetry. I wish I had learned more. I had read more. Somehow, when you are young, you have to choose a path. At least in Spain, when I was growing up, whether you're going to go towards science or whether you're going to go more towards what we call letters, like words. And I chose science. So that meant that I never studied Latin. I never studied. I only did 1 year of history, of worldwide history. There's a little bit of that when you're young, when you're growing up, like world history, like prehistory and things like that. But to go into details of, World War II or things like that, even the Civil War, the Spanish Civil War, we did very, very little of that. You saw it later? All right. So I did very little history. I had only 1 year of philosophy, which is really, really sad now because, my whole channel is about yogic philosophy. I wish I knew more philosophy. And I never learned any poetry. I never went too deep into philology or, studying Latin, you study the etymology of words, which is something that I really, really enjoy now as an adult. But I don't have that background myself. So as a consequence, I'm very illiterate in terms of poetry and even books in general. I haven't read that much. Satnam Infinity, hello. Good to see you here. So, if anybody knows any beautiful poem that we could explore here in these videos, please let me know, and I will look at it and then we will include it in some future day. Because I would like to, take the opportunity here that we are just sharing an open space, a meditative space to include poetry. Because there's something incredible, which is when a yogi finds enlightenment or even liberation, it's like they've been struggling to get there somehow. And something happens the moment that let's say that the veil lifts. Yeah, there is this description of how between us and God there is a veil. Between us and the unknown there is a veil. So you cannot see what is behind the veil. You can just you can sense there is something there behind, but you cannot really see it. So there is a moment through your dharma and if the blessings come, if the grace comes and you are ready, the veil may lift. And the incredible thing is that after the veil lifts, those people suddenly start speaking in poetry. So it's like those who go, those who get to the experience of me and God are one, when they come back to their planet to communicate as what that feels, the only way to communicate that is through poetry. I find that incredibly interesting because because language is something that is very much on the left hemisphere and art is more into the right hemisphere. So language actually would correspond, is more linked to the scientist's brain. But poetry is art. So it's a way of communicating from both hemispheres at the same time. So that's something interesting. Infinity says, I think there's a deep spiritual poem by Rumi called Conference of Birds. Thank you. I will check it out. I will look into it. I will take a note. Conference of Birds, you say. Rumi has incredible poetry, really, really beautiful. Yeah, we can read some Shabbats or some poems and then just let ourselves be inspired by them in the channel. So, even when you read something like the Yoga Sutras, I don't think the Yoga Sutras are written in a poetic form, and yet the way it's written is highly interpretable, which is something that has in common with poems. And so there's something about poems, something that when you read it, it puts you in a different dimension and you don't try to analyze it analytically through the left hemisphere, but you are trying to capture the art that is linked to that. And any analysis that we may do on that, because we're going to read the poem and we're going to analyze it a little bit, part of the analysis is made with the left hemisphere, but I want to leave it open to just appreciate the art of it. And the reading of it can just let us touch ourselves with that art without having to dissect it. I am not in favor of dissecting beauty. It's not about you see a butterfly and you want to, you want to touch the wings. Oh, how beautiful! But if we touch the wings break, and then the butterfly is dead, cannot fly anymore. So it's not about touching beauty, but letting beauty touch us. This is kind of the paradox of being in presence with something beautiful. So let's see if we can let ourselves be touched at the same time that we touch the beauty in the poem. So Hale says, by Attar Neishaburi, who was older than Rumi. Ah, okay. The Conference of Birds, you mean? It's good. I will check it out. Attar Neishaburi. I will not do it right now because I would have to make sure that it can appear on the screen, and looking for it it may take a while because sometimes it's not so straightforward to find something in the internet. So I will check it out. Also in Tamil poetry there is something called Abandhanam related to brain, particularly work in memory, where one can perform from 8 up to 1,000 operations in the brain at one moment. I will check it out. Abandhanam. Thank you. Yeah, any suggestions, just keep them coming. I will write them down and then I will check it out. I was listening. My brain is a little bit dispersed today, I don't know. I was listening to a podcast on memory this week, and interesting that this comes up. All right, so how about we put the poem on the screen and we read it together. So the poem is called Invictus. And now that I remember, and I think of it, there was a movie. Oh yeah, the Nelson Mandela, a movie about Nelson Mandela and I think it was called Invictus as well, the same as the poem. Yeah, Nelson Mandela's life was quite incredible. I don't know if you have read the book of his autobiography. Very, very interesting. But so the movie is called Invictus. Invictus means unconquerable. Like you cannot win against that. Invictus. Victus is from victory. Yeah, so you cannot have victory over that. And the poet is William Ernest Henley. William Ernest Henley. This is this young man. When he was a young man, he battled with tuberculosis. And tuberculosis can be, lungs and other areas, but he had it in the bones. Well, it affected parts of his body, but he had it also in the bones, in particular in one leg. And something that would be standard procedure back in the day, I think this was 1800s, it would be to remove the leg, to amputate the leg. So he wrote this poem as he was bedridden in the hospital, recovering from having had his leg amputated. So it's difficult to imagine how are the circumstances around the writing of this poem could have been for him. Can you imagine how the nights were for him with the pain? And there was no antibiotics back then, and there was probably very simple kind of medicine. So if we want to read the poem properly, we have to try to put ourselves in his place. And what could it feel to... He had already been struggling with tuberculosis. He would continue struggling throughout his life. And they just amputated his leg, and yet he is finding this inner courage, tremendous inner courage, to battle the disease and to come victorious, to end victorious in the battle. So this name of Invictus, it's very significant. And his story would be so inspiring. He, he was a writer, and he published many things, and he was friends with other writers. And there's one other writer who was what was his name? Who wrote the Treasure Island, I think is the name. What's his name? Or Robert Louis Stevenson. Robert Louis Stevenson. He wrote Treasure Island, a very, very famous pirate books. And he inspired, it's thought that he inspired one of the main characters of the book, Long John Silver, on William Ernest Henley. So the character in the book where there is this pirate with only one leg is based on the poet who wrote Invictus. And he's quite particular. The character is so strong in the book, and you can tell that there's something special about this guy. So the idea of pirates having only one leg probably originated from him. Now that's an interesting concept already. And so his character was very strong. Remember, in the 7 Steps to Heaven, commitment brings to character, so that he was a very committed guy, and you could tell in his character. Well, this is what he would write as he was laying in bed. Let's read slowly. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. And I want to reflect upon the different words here slowly, very slowly. And then we will read it all at the end again. But out of the night that covers me. So please, if you are listening, feel free to say what it feels to listen to those words, how how it feels for you or what it means to you as well. And I will do my own interpretation and my own feeling. I will explain my own feeling. Out of the night that covers me, I'm imagining him at night in this hospital full of pain. And do you remember the other poem we were reading from Rumi where he was saying, don't go back to sleep? That was a very revealing poem when he talks about beyond the ideas of right doing and wrong doing. If you remember that one, we saw it in another stream that we were doing here, another Thursday. Don't go back to sleep. So he's in bed. He cannot sleep. He's full of pain. And so it's nighttime, but it's not just that it's nighttime. It's the night that covers me. So it's oppressing and it's on top of you. And it doesn't have to be nighttime. The night can cover you means you are in darkness. You are full of darkness. It's around you. It's all around you. It's covering you. And when it's covering you, you cannot see around. So he is in the darkness. How dark is that? Black as the pit from pole to pole. Now, the first interpretation that one can do very quickly would be from pole to pole, from North Pole to South Pole. So there is a pit, there is an emptiness, there is a void, and he's saying from pole to pole. So it's like in the darkness around that covers the whole planet. It's like saying in the whole planet. The first time I read this poem, however, I did a different interpretation. I don't know if it makes sense or not. But because I'm trying to imagine him in this hospital bed or in his own bed after the hospital trying to recover. And I have this image in my head of a bed in those times. And the beds would have 4 poles and they would have some curtains or something hanging, probably curtains or maybe to protect from mosquitoes or things like that. Now, could it be that he is looking out from his bed, he cannot get up from bed, he's bedridden, and he says, black as the pit from pole to pole. Like, this is his vision, this is as much as he sees nothing else. This is what he sees, his bed, and from pole to pole, that's what he sees, and that's black. It's like a pit and it's black pit. Yeah, so it's black because it's nighttime, it's black because he is in the darkest part of his life, and it's black because he cannot see anything else than his bed. So he cannot see beyond his bed. So I like that interpretation. I don't know if it makes any sense or not, but to me somehow it does. So out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. And the P sound, black as the pit from pole to pole. Black. B as the pit, p from pole to pole. The P and the B sounds, they are plosives. And they are done by accumulating air in the mouth and then releasing it. So there is an explosive quality to that. Those words which are pang, bang, is like explosive. So it's an explosive darkness. There's this darkness and it's exploding in himself. I can imagine the pain exploding in himself. And that, like, some very strong pain can make you see darkness and some stars a little bit, like you cannot see properly because of the pain. So I can imagine also that this huge pain that he must have been through was creating this blackness as well. I was just now noticing how in Spanish to have one leg amputated and these pirates which walk on one leg, we would say that they have a pata de palo, which is one of the legs are made of stick, like made of wood, a wooden leg. But it's pata de palo, which is the double P. And so pole and palo is very similar. Sorry, I keep confusing this. So from pole to pole, I wonder also, that, look how interesting. It's like every time he steps, when he gets out of bed and he tries to step with his wooden leg, there's one pole. It's like he's leaning on that pole. and then one leg, and then another pole, and that's like black. There's blackness. Yeah, it's a pit. A pit is like a hole that is trying to swallow you. So I can imagine him trying to walk with this new leg that they are putting him, a wooden leg, and as he's trying to learn how to walk with that and full of pain, every step is full of pain, and every step is the darkness below trying to swallow him. He probably fell many times trying to walk with this, so it's like a pit trying to swallow you. I never thought about that before, but it kind of makes sense to me as it's coming right now. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. So, isn't it incredible? He's describing something so dark, so heavy in a way, and his next line, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. So the first two lines is pure darkness, and the second two lines are light. There's yin and yang. There's this polarity already, and we already exploring the polarity with one leg which is alive and the other leg which is dead. Again, a polarity, yin and yang, in himself, in his own legs. And then in the poem, as he first starts, the first two steps of the poem, you could say, one is the darkness and one is the light. How interesting, eh? So the light step is I thank whatever gods may be. So we say that the world, as we come into the world, the longitude and latitude has been determined, and we have to develop the attitude and the altitude. So the attitude in yoga, we say, the best attitude is attitude of gratitude. It's like a tongue twister. So attitude of gratitude, that's when you can say thanks. And we saw in another video, we were talking about how the first step in the spiritual path, I said that many times, but now it makes so much sense as well, because he is trying to give his first steps, isn't he? And I said many times, the first step in the spiritual path is forgiveness. Now imagine, he is trying to give his first steps with his new leg. And he could be blaming his fate, his destiny, God, his luck, whatever. He's thanking. Right? Thanks, gratitude is the outcome of the whole process of forgiveness. So you recognize, accept, and agree as you go through every step and you come on the other side. How do you know that you came to the other side? Because there's gratitude. And this is what he's telling us. Look, there is all this darkness. I am grateful. Wow. This is when we say, the mind is complaining about something. Yeah, but I'm tired, but I don't have energy. And you say, but I am committed. So there is this negation of the darkness, in this case through the gratitude. How relevant. I thank whatever goes may be. And he uses this may be he's considering, I don't know if they are or they're not. Because he hasn't seen them. He's describing that if he had seen God, if he had explored and in the darkness he had found some mystical light or whatever, and that's why he's grateful, he would say, I thank God, or I thank the light, or I thank whatever. He would use some language. He doesn't use that language. He uses whatever gods may be. I don't know if they are, because he is in the darkness. In the darkness you cannot see well. And in the darkness, he's thanking whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Unconquerable soul. This phrase, there's so many things coming to my mind right now, but one of them is, unconquerable means that you cannot be conquered. So there is some sort of battle and you are not losing that battle. And that's interesting because it connects to a paradox in the spiritual path in which, first of all, we don't fight against things, we fight for things, for something. And in that fight for, we have to surrender to something higher, let's say. If we don't do this as a surrendering to something higher, which is the dharmic attitude, then we are doing it for ourselves. And if we are doing it for ourselves, that's selfish. And if it's selfish, that's karmic. You don't want to initiate any fight from that karma. We should do everything from the dharmic side. Now, that dharma requires a certain surrender. So he's saying unconquerable soul. His soul cannot be conquered. And I wonder if he cannot be conquered because he has surrendered his soul to something higher. But it's interesting because he says whatever gods may be. So he doesn't know about God. He's not putting all his trust that there is some God and he's bowing to that God and that's why he cannot be conquered. Because he is putting the question mark on God as well. Unconquerable soul makes me think that he's victorious. And always in life, you can be a victim or you can be victorious. And there is one element that transforms one into the other. We can be victims of circumstance, and look, he could very easily become a victim. He could so easily, he would have the biggest excuse in the world to just play the victim card. Oh, because me, my tuberculosis, whatever. He would get attention from people. He's not doing that. He's finding his courage. So he's choosing not to be a victim. And the path from victim to victory is the path of self-initiation. When you stand up for yourself and they need somebody to do something, I will do it. Yeah, you offer yourself, which it can be misinterpreted from the outside like, oh, he's always trying to be the protagonist, the main character, always doing things. Well, it takes a lot of humility to offer yourself to do what needs to be done. Not to show anyone anything, not to try to demonstrate anything, not to be seen, but because something has to be done and somebody has to stand up for that. So you raise your hand and you offer yourself, volunteer for that. That's self-initiation. And that's one of the major steps that is going to move from victim to victory. And he is initiating himself. He is raising his hand. He's even raising from the bed. He's trying to walk on these two legs, on these new wooden legs. So he is choosing the path of victory. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. Let's go for the second one. There may be an easier way to do this. I'm doing it very, very. I don't know. It's a very strange method to do this right now. I will have to investigate how to move this page better. But anyway, second step. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. In the fell clutch of circumstance. So, as I understand, fell clutch of circumstances like the circumstance has got him. Let me look for this word. Let me see. So clutch is to grasp or hold with, or as if with a hand or claws, usually strongly, tightly, or suddenly. So, like a claw, holding very tightly, grasping strongly, tightly, and suddenly. Interesting. And fell, I think it doesn't mean like, it's not the past of falling. Fell, clutch is an adjective. Fell is an adjective. So that would be something, let me see, adjectives. Fell, fierce, ferocious, dreadful, savage, destructive, deadly. So the fell clutch is a deadly or ferocious grasping that circumstance has on him. Circumstance. So it's like saying some circumstances have happened and suddenly the fierce claw of circumstance is grabbing me in a ferocious way, in a dreadful way, in a destructive way. He just lost his leg. In the fell clutch of circumstance. So he attributes that to circumstance, which is kind of, I would say, this is what we would say karma. He doesn't have that language in that era, in that time. So he wouldn't use that language. But for us, it would be karma has manifested and is grabbing him. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. So he's going through all this pain, but he's not wincing and he's not crying aloud. He's not going to go into the victim. He's chosen not to fall into the victim mode. Under the bludgeonings of chance. And bludgeoning, I think, is like hitting somebody with an object, like not a sharp object, but a blunt object, I think. Let's check. Bludgeoning. To beat repeatedly with a bludgeon or other heavy object. So what is a bludgeon? A thick stick with a heavy end. Yeah, so it's not a sharp, it's a blunt object, yeah. So, under the bludgeonings of chance, which is, I can imagine that I don't know. Bludgeonings of chance. Chance is like to say bad luck, right? But this is what we were saying. He doesn't have the language to talk about karma. So he says, how bad are these circumstances that by chance has been hitting me again and again. Bludgeonings is plural, so he's hitting me again and again and again by chance. Now we know it's not just luck, it's not that he is unfortunate. This is karma. But he says, again, my head is bloody, but I'm bowed. So in the first 4 lines, he was going through, out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. This is the young, the darkness. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. This is the light. Now he's going dark light, dark light. In the fell clutch of circumstance that's dark, I have not winced nor cried aloud. So he's found the courage to go through that without crying and without wincing. And then that's the light. Under the bludgeonings of chance, that's the dark, my head is bloody, but unbowed. So that's the light again. And then my head is bloody, but unbowed. So he's bloody. He has been going, they just cut his leg. There's been blood. There has been the sacrifice. My head is bloody, but unbowed. Unbowed, he's not bowing. But he's not bowing to what? He's not bowing to circumstances. He's not bowing to fate. He's not bowing to whatever misfortune has brought this upon him. Because he has this unconquerable soul. So, remember when I was saying that what allows us to stand up straight when we are in a battle, we have to surrender to something higher. This standing up straight is like surrendering to something higher. And it's something that we sometimes do when we are bowing. We bow, we put the head on the ground, we drop the ego, we stand up, we offer ourselves to the divine. So there is double movement and this paradoxical thing of bowing down and letting go and surrendering, and by surrendering you conquer something. In the same way, he's not bowing down his head, but there is humility in that as well. I don't think it doesn't feel like he's bragging. It doesn't feel like he's trying to tell everyone how strong he is. It feels like he's praying. That's how it feels to me. He's thanking, he's praying. It's an opening position. So he's not bowing, but is he not bowing to the divine? No, he's not bowing to fate. He's not bowing to the circumstance. He's not bowing to chance. Meaning that he's not going to just do whatever the chance asks him to do. We will come back to this point later on. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. So again we go with the darkness and the light. Beyond this place of wrath and tears. So I don't think he's gone home yet. He's still in the hospital. They just cut his leg. Place of wrath and tears. Wrath is like even more extreme than anger. It's close to hate, but wrath is one of the 7 deadly sins, I believe. We did a video on that, 7 deadly sins. And wrath would be the higher expression of anger, like not higher like better, but higher like more intense expression of anger. So there is anger and there is tears, which is grief. And they are both together. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade. So what is beyond the hospital? What is beyond his bed? These 2 poles that he's seeing. What is right beyond there? Beyond that, there is something looming, something very close and approaching and almost like on top of you. And it's the horror of the shade. And he writes horror in capital letters. So I believe that's interesting that he puts it in capital is like personifying it, like giving it it's like a character in the story. Horror is there, like death. It's just there. It's looming. It's lurking. It's just around the corner. It's right in the darkness, waiting to catch you. The horror of the shade. And the shade is linked to the shadow. Is linked to the darkness. We said that in the first part. He said, "Out of the night that covers me." So he's covered by this darkness, the night. And he says, that's it. That's where the horror of the shade is. Horror in capital letters. How do you hear this? Let me know. What does he say to you? It's something else. Something else as well. This word looms. Let's read what it says. To appear as a large, often frightening or unclear shape or object. To appear as a large, often frightening or unclear shape or object. So a large and frightening shape, the horror, large and frightening, threatening. And he says also, something that seems ominously close. Ominously close, that's interesting. So something close to happen, something that is right there, look, black as the pit from pole to pole, beyond his bed, right on the other side. That's where the horror is, looming, huge, large, and frightening. There's something else also about this word, looms. I'm thinking not looms as a verb, but looms as a noun. A loom is something that you utilize to make cloth. And I was remembering now an old video game I used to play when I was little. It was called Loom. And it's like the fabric of the universe is made out of this loom. And I remember reading something about this in some tantric text. Tantra linked to the loom and linked to the fabric of the universe. I don't remember what it is. If you know, you can write it down. You can let me know what it was. But there's something connected to this. And there is this fabric of the universe, and it's like everything is harmonious in a way in the universe, but we are not so in contact with that harmony. So we don't really know what is the fabric of the universe, how is it made of. And so he's saying, he's using a verb. I mean, it's really looming, like something close. But how about that, the loom, the texture of the cloth being fate, chance, circumstance? It's like somehow there is these threads are going like this in this way, and sometimes a thread skips a step and something may happen. It's like an accident and something, it will have consequences. But also it's like seeing everything is written down, everything has been designed by design. There is a design, there is a universal design that makes me be a victim of circumstances. Even though he refuses to feel like a victim. But there is also this concept of something has been already written down with a loom. Beyond this place of wrath and tears, so the extreme anger and grief, and the horror of the shade is right there, close, very close at hand, very, very close. And yet, the menace of the years, the menace is something is menacing, is like a warning that is coming. The menace of the years, whatever comes, whatever is going to come in this shade, whatever is going to come in this darkness that I cannot perceive, finds and shall find me unafraid. So every little fragment of the poem, he refuses to end in the darkness. He goes yang yin, like that, or yin yang. And every little section, he's always ending in the light. My unconquerable soul, unbowed, unafraid. The menace of the years, whatever is to come. Because cutting the leg was by no means a cure. It was a radical solution to a temporal problem, but the tuberculosis can manifest in many ways, and actually he would continue suffering from it for many years. So he doesn't know what's coming, the menace of the years, what is to come still. And yet, he says, it shall finds and shall find me unafraid. He's vowing he will not be afraid by this, which is one of the virtues that we have often explored when we were talking about the Mul Mantra, when we did the Mul Mantra course. It looks like 1,000 years ago now. In the Mul Mantra course, we were studying every word of the Mul Mantra. Ekonkar Satnam Kartapurak Nirbhav Nirvera Kal Murat Ajuni Sai Bangur Prasad Jap At Sat Jugat Sat Hebi Sat Nanahusibi Sach. And in this, the sixth one, Ekonkar Satnam Kartapurak Nirbhav. Nirbhav, the sixth one, means fearless, unafraid, fearless. So he is bowing I am not and I shall not be afraid. So he's vowing to be, in spite of whatever is happening, to not be afraid by the menace of what's coming. All right, let's read the next section. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. The captain of my soul. I think this is the most famous line of the whole poem. It matters not how straight the gate, how straight the gate. And I think this is something Christian. I think this is a reference to something in the Bible. What was it? Here, I looked for it before. Matthew 7:13-14 says, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it." The narrow gate. So this would be the common interpretation of this line. I would imagine is linking it to the scriptures, and in this context and the culture that he was in, I would imagine that he was raised with Christian beliefs, and so the straight gate would be this one, the one that not many people take, the one that leads to life. It matters not how straight the gate, but I think of something else. When I read these lines, these four lines, these last four lines, this is what made me believe that he had a near-death experience. So on Tuesday I was talking about near-death experiences and the experience I had through the death of my father. And when I read these lines, I thought, this man, this poet, he has been there. He knows what is beyond the tunnel. Because if you look at it in this context, think about it. The first part of the poem, he's talking about the tunnel. The pit from pole to pole, yeah? The night that covers him, where he is, he's in the darkness. And yet he's always looking for the light. My unconquerable soul, my head unbowed and afraid. So he's hearing everyone around him wincing and crying, wrath and tears. This is what he's hearing around, bludgeonings of chance. I can imagine in the hospital all sort of, maybe they are chopping somebody's leg and you can hear that, clang, clang. He's hearing all these things around him. This is like the darkness. And he's going through the tunnel. He wants to go through that tunnel, the straight gate. It matters not how straight the gate. It matters not how straight the gate is, just saying, I'm going to go through it, no matter how little, how narrow it is. And there's some other teachings, I don't remember where, but it says that in order to cross to heaven, you have to pass through the eye of the needle, meaning that you have to become very, very small. Very small means dropping your ego behind. You cannot go through the narrow gate, the straight gate, with your ego. You have to let it go to really cross through that. In numbers, if we look at numbers, this would be the number of death is 8. And the number 8, so this is infinite, right? Number 8 is infinity, yeah, like the name of somebody watching us here, infinity. And the number 8 is like a 0 that has been twisted. But now, if you look at here, there is a little gap in the middle. Now, in the middle of the polarities of the 8 is the number 5. And what we are saying is that there is a narrow gap. there is a narrow, a straight gate. How did he say it? No matter how straight is the gate. So he's talking about this narrow space that you cannot cross with your ego in order to get to the 5. We were talking about death on Tuesday. And as we go through the number 8, as we go through death, we can have access to the 5 blue ethers. It's like they are on the other side of this 5, through this narrow gate. Let me do something else as well. Do you remember this? We were watching this in the other video, the soul's journey. Well, if we consider this is the death, and then this is birth, then you can connect these diagrams and say, well, here is one life's journey, and here is another life's journey, and another one. And you keep joining them, so there is this sense of the infinite. Somehow, yeah, you can see it. And going through death many times could be sort of like this. To explore the middle point, to explore the passage, to find the passage, to learn the passage. It's like when you are awake or you are asleep. Awake or asleep, the polarity. Yeah, awake and asleep, alive and dead, alive and dead. And as you cross from awake to asleep, that moment, that's the moment of the, how is it called? The moment when the sun is just touching the horizon. I cannot find the word now, but this is in between day and night, in between life and death, this moment of in between, it's something magical. There's some special light, there's some blue light as well that happens in the horizon. I'm connecting things here, but if you look at the horizon in the very last second, there is this little blue light that crosses. I remember there was this in a TV series when I was little. Oh, let me read the message. It would be interesting if you make a video on the pineal gland and DMT in relation to these ND experiences. I don't know much about that actually. I just know that the pineal gland is a gland that produces that molecule, the DMT, and it's said that the pineal gland, it releases, it's producing the molecule even after death, during the first hours after death. So that would be maybe opening the mind to have that experience. But remember, the brain is switched off the moment that we die. But maybe that's why also when people take the molecule artificially through some drugs, they can access these similar experiences of having out-of-body experiences and things like that. I imagine it would be connected in those ways. But I don't know much about the DMT concept. So I was saying, I remember a TV series when I was little that I used to watch with my father, Lawrence of Arabia. And there was a moment in the TV series when he's talking about how as the sun touches the horizon, in a very little instant you can see a flashing blue light all around the horizon. And I find it interesting that it's blue, and blue is the color of the 5th chakra, number 5, and 5 is the number of blue ethers. So we are finding this blue crossing through the narrow gate. We are going to go into number 5 next week. We're going to start with that. So it's all coming together. It also produces melatonin, which is a precursor to DMT and related to different kinds of light. DMT secreted naturally at birth and death moments. Yes, and I imagine in meditation as well, it would be produced. And melatonin is the hormone that we produce to go to sleep. So the pineal gland is the gland that regulates circadian rhythms, I think. And it understands when it's day and when it's night, and is telling us when to go to sleep and when not. But again, I don't know much about DMT itself. But I imagine, like many drugs, it just breaks the barriers of the mind of what it thinks that is possible and what is not, to access something beyond. Now, that can be a good experience if you are too tight and controlled in your mind. But if you go into something beyond your control, it can be very frightening, and you can also feel out of control of that experience. So I can imagine it could have all sorts of negative consequences as well. So anyway, the narrow gate, the straight gate to cross through the blue ethers, this narrow passage. So it matters not how straight the gate, he's saying, he's committed. How charged with punishments the scroll. This is the phrases that make me think that he went through a near-death experience, because he's describing, look, after the tunnel of the shadow, when you are going through the tunnel, when you are passing through the astral realms, if you have a certain perception of what's happening around you, you can perceive these shadow energies. I mentioned in the other video on death that there is the light and the shadow, there is angels and monsters in the astral realm. When you are crossing through the astral realm, you have this feeling that they are right there. He describes it, looms, but the horror of the shade. So they loom very close, very, very near as you are crossing through the shadow. So he's done the path of forgiveness. He's gone through that. He's unbowed. Unbowed means he's straight. Straight is also the posture for meditation. So he's fully unbowed, not going down, but going up. And in this going up, he's crossing through the tunnel. He's seeing all this shadow right next to him. And he goes through the straight gate. And then what does he say? What does he say? How charged with punishments the scroll. This is interesting. The way I read this is that he's talking about those 3 seconds when we review life, and when we see everything that we did wrong, and then we see everything is the law of karma, and we see that whatever we did wrong is going to have consequences. So there's like the scroll with the punishments. This is like the day of judgment. Let's remember, he comes from the Christian culture, so he believes that there's going to be a reckoning. There's going to be a day where he will be judged by everything that he did. If he went through the death experience, if he went through the gate, the narrow gate, and he has been through the tunnel, he may have seen these 3 seconds, he may have seen his life, everything that he did wrong, and the punishments that he sees associated to that, because that's something very connected to Christian culture as well. Mea culpa, I am guilty. Just by being born in this planet, I already carry a sin, and I'm guilty of that sin, which is really a horrible, heavy thing to put even on children, right from the start. But anyway, that's how religion worked for a long time, how it grabbed people into their clutch. So he's experiencing that no matter how charged with punishments the scroll, how charged, no matter how many charges he has, which is something that we utilize when somebody has been caught by the police, no? Are you going to be charged or not? So no matter how charged with punishments the scroll, he doesn't care about that, because he is the master of the fate. I am the master of my fate. He's saying, I'm going to go beyond this punishment, this scroll with how guilty may I feel. I'm not going to go with that. So that's refusing to accept this idea that we are sinners and we have sinned and we are guilty and we need to be punished. He's crossing through the narrow gate and he's saying, I will not go into that, which is I mentioned he proves that he has forgiven himself through the gratitude. So he forgives himself for whatever happened. He doesn't mind. No, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to take it. And he's going to go beyond. He's going to be the master of his fate, which in another word is what we say destiny. In yoga, we call that destiny, the master of your fate. You can have fate or you can have destiny. Fate is the things that happen to you as karma, and destiny is when you align yourself to the path where you are in harmony and with the universe and walking towards your fulfillment. If you are if I'm a little acorn, can I be a big oak tree rather than trying to be an almond tree, right? Can I be what I am meant to be, what my destiny means that I have to be? And so he's the master of his fate. He's choosing, I'm going to be the master. I'm going to be the one who chooses my fate, meaning I'm going to align myself with my destiny because I am the captain of my soul. How powerful is that? I am the captain of my soul. How often the captain goes to sleep and he leaves the second aboard to take command of the ship. This metaphor is very useful when we are thinking about the mind. The mind and the ego particularly is like the second aboard, the one who takes decisions when the soul is not awake. So when we take those decisions, that's when we create fate. That's when the circumstances will align in some particular way, when we are going to be receiving these bludgeonings of chance. He's not doing that. I am the captain of my soul. He's choosing to not do that. He's going through the gate. He's going through the tunnel. He's seeing his life flashing in front of his eyes. He's not going to punish himself. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. He's going to sail on. Sail and soul. How interesting the similarities. Sail and soul. Yeah, I'm going to sail on. Sail on. So when I read this poem, to me, it just made total sense that I could recognize somebody who has been there, who has been through the tunnel and who has seen what's on the other side. As he is writing the poem, he may be right there crossing through the tunnel. He may be right then seeing what's on the other side and the words are coming to him. Because the words are the things that is going to help us cross. It's by choosing the words that we wish to speak that we can help ourselves to cross through this narrow gate, the straight gate. So he's finding the words, the right words to express how he wants to go through that. Incredible poem. I don't know if it touched you, if it touches you the same way it touches me, but I find it incredibly powerful. How about we read it all in one go? And then we will take a few minutes to meditate upon the meaning. We'll just close our eyes and meditate upon that. So I will read it one more time. Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Invictus. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Inhale deep and exhale. Satnam, I find it inspiring, this image of William Ernest Henley with standing on one leg, learning how to walk, and choosing to be the master of his fate. Wow, powerful stuff. I hope that it was inspiring for you. I will check these poems. If anybody has any other poems that you would like me to explore here in the channel someday, write them in the comments of the video. If you have enjoyed this, you can press the like button and share it with your friends. Thank you for everybody for participating. Thank you for everybody who supports the channel as well, for the memberships. And next week we will start with number 5. We will go into the word and exploring numbers much more in detail. Have a good week. Satnam.